Hi, I'm Scott Wrighton. I serve as Decatur's City Manager, and every week we try to bring you a little bit more information, new information we hope, about what's going on with your city government. And since we're starting a brand new year and a brand new budget cycle as well, I thought I'd talk a little bit about last week as well as this week, some of the things that I call the challenges that Decatur faces in 2024. So first, let me mention about key business districts. Ever since the pandemic, the whole retail environment, not just in Decatur, but throughout the country, has changed. The way people shop through online services, the way that they, even if they're shopping with a local vendor, could be that it's delivered to their home. So the whole way that retail is configured is changing, and that change is not complete yet. And it is, of course, going to affect how existing retail and commercial business areas, both major ones like downtown and along Pershing Avenue, but also smaller ones like Oakwood or Woodford Plaza and smaller sort of secondary retail and commercial areas in the city. How they look, how they work is going to change. The City Council has, for the last 5 years really, made a renovation of downtown, sort of taking it to the next level, one of their priorities. It's one of the 6 priorities in their strategic plan. And that's going to take shape in this new year in the form of, in lots of different forms. There's several projects that are on the boards, but one of the key ones is the creation of a tax increment financing district that, while it includes downtown, it also includes large parts of the other manufacturing areas that are on the collar of downtown, the large residential area to the west of Monroe Street, all the way over to Route 48, the Fairview Plaza, a large tax increment financing district, which will be a key economic development tool for the city to use in renovating all of the properties that are inside the tax increment financing district. But there's other things that the city can do as well. In 2009, the city did a major infrastructure rehab of downtown. That's what resulted in the new curbs and gutters and sidewalks, the brick ribbon behind the curbs, the new decorative lighting, and other improvements in downtown that certainly helped bring downtown up to a higher level than it had been before. And so what the council is looking at now is, are there certain places where those infrastructure improvements should be expanded that weren't included in the 2009 project? And having had that in place, and certainly it's had some real positive impact on downtown, are there some other commercial districts where that same sort of thinking on a smaller scale could be extended? And then with regard to downtown, what is it that takes it to the next level, which clearly means, we've discovered anyway, that we need to add more residential. If there's more people living downtown and in some of these other secondary commercial areas, then that adds to its vibrancy and certainly makes it possible for retail to be more successful. The other thing I want to talk about as a challenge for 2024 is, as I mentioned earlier, these large non-residential buildings that have become vacant and the property owner either cannot or does not want to fix them up. The city's strategy for dealing with these properties is not uniform because the circumstances with every property are not the same. We've received complaints from people who say, well, the McClellan grocery building on MLK is coming down and that looks bad, and the Tick building across from Garver Feeds looks bad, and the pile of rubble that was the Walrus manufacturing building looks bad, and there's other buildings downtown. The fact that these are coming down isn't a negative, it's a positive. It means that the community is being renovated, that these large ugly buildings of the past are coming down so that their properties can be repurposed. Nobody wants to talk about repurposing these properties as long as a building that is going to take a lot of money to move and get out of the way is still there, when they have questions about the environmental issues about these sites. And so when the city can take a decisive hand in getting these buildings taken down, that's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. The problem is, for us, as your city officials, is we want to make those things happen without the taxpayers having to pay for it. These owners have had these buildings for a long time. They've taken the value out of them over a period of many years. And now we face a situation with some owners who are responsible and they step up and they take care of their buildings. But in other cases, we have owners who are not responsible. The Ballogs, who own the Walrus manufacturing building, as well as some other buildings there on Martin Luther King, have been very reluctant to take responsibility for their building, and so that means that the city has to step in, and we haven't paid for any of it yet, but we want to avoid that by taking whatever the necessary legal action is to get them to take responsibility for their property. We face the same thing, I think, probably with the Derelict Corporation and the old YWCA located at the corner of Main and El Dorado. An old building that is failing and is a threat to public safety. We have to block an adjoining sidewalk. And it is possible for the city just to tear it down like we did in cooperation with the school district for Woodrow Wilson. But in the case of the Woodrow Wilson property, there was no property owner who could be held responsible. But in the case of the Walrus Manufacturing Building, Associated Office Furnishings, certainly the YWCA, there is a responsible property owner locally who has resources, who has the means to take care of it, and it's the city's position that the city taxpayers shouldn't be having to take over those properties. And so that means we have to initiate legal action, and that protracts and extends out the time necessary to get these properties cleared. But I want you to know that the city is committed to doing that, to getting these out of there, but it takes longer because we don't want to have to put taxpayer resources into it. And as I said earlier, every one of these non-residential properties has its own story. There's a different set of circumstances about what the value of the property is, whether or not it's contaminated with asbestos or some other environmental issues, or has got buried fuel tanks that complicate the clearing of the site. And so the fact that every site is different means that the city can't use sort of a one-size-fits-all. And while I can't go into the details of these sites, please know that the city is aware of these sites, and that as you've seen, there's progress happening on many of them, sometimes at the same time, and others where progress is not yet visible. Please know that the city behind the scenes is trying to move these properties so that we can make a more modern 21st century use of some of these key properties, most of them here in the Central Business District. So those are my 4 challenges for 2024, and next week we'll bring you some more information from the next City Council meeting. Until then, thank you for tuning into this video.